Take a break, Adamu. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. I just got a bunch of video of those dusty bones recently.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot of video of those dusty bones. These hills we live on, people, they're full of bones.
That's right.
Crazy ancient bones. So, as always, well, not as always, but usually, as always, we are joined by our good friend and longhead, Mr. Brett England, the Watcher from deep beneath his secret space station in secret outer space. How you doing out there, buddy? What's going on? Oh, wow.
Yeah, man.
Something went wrong with our connection there, Watcher. Oh, there you are. That's better. Yeah, get that internet connection off of your knee. Put it back up where it's supposed to go.
What'd you say? Because we just got...
Yeah, what did you first say there, Watcher?
So that's what it sounds like every time I open a door.
Man.
It makes it really hard to sneak around.
That's a genius space station design, though. Yeah. You always feel like you're figuring out secrets of the universe every time you open a door. Hell yes, there's something secret in here.
Well, that's the only way it can work in a secret space station is deep beneath the secret.
Yeah, the secret bunker deep beneath the secret space station in secret outer space. Every door has to sound like that.
That's right.
All right. Also, as always, we have SpaceWeatherNews. A month without sunspots? It could happen. The sun has been without spots since the beginning of February. Only 2 more days are necessary for an entire month of spotlessness. This long interval of blank suns is a sign that solar minimum is underway. This phase of the solar cycle brings extra cosmic rays, long-lasting holes in the sun's atmosphere, and strangely pink auroras, which we have spoken about before. So the chance of storms this week, NOAA forecasters say there is a 50% chance of minor G1 class geomagnetic storms on February 27th, when a fast-moving stream of solar wind is expected to hit Earth's magnetic field. The gaseous material is flowing from a large hole in the sun's atmosphere now facing our planet. This is a coronal hole, a region in the sun's atmosphere where magnetic fields open up, allowing solar wind to escape, emerging at speeds near 500 kilometers per second, or 1.1 million miles per hour. The wind will probably surround our planet for several days. We've seen this coronal hole before. It opened in the summer of 2018 and has been spinning around as the sun rotates, lashing Earth with solar wind approximately once a month. The last time our planet felt its gaseous emissions was in late January 2019, and bright auroras surged around the Arctic Circle, and some of the lights even spilled into the USA. More such displays are likely this week. From SpaceWeather.com.
Yeah. Dude, there was the green auroras that were happening recently.
Oh, man, those are beautiful.
I sent you that picture of the they were calling it like the dragon aurora or something.
Yeah, that was, what was that?
Check that out, Watcher. Dragon aurora. There's like there was an image that I saw of it where there's a person in the distance standing on this, Arctic landscape or whatever. And just, I mean,
yeah, the
thing in the sky is like
a dragon.
A dragon. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. I just stared at that image for so long, just like, dude.
Yeah, it was freaking gorgeous. I would love to go see the auroras.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. I mean, like and they slowly move, like it's very slow, but they undulate. So I've seen some some like time lapse footage of it, and it's amazing. So.
Yeah, that's it. That's the image right there.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, nope. That is the same
one of them.
Same place. But there's one that has like a lot more of the aurora in it.
Oh, the picture's taller, the one you sent me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. We'll put these in the show notes, people, because they are beautiful auroras.
Want to see them.
Yep. All right. I know you have stories.
I have stories.
But before let's hear it. Let's hear your stories.
Which one you want?
I've got an email. Should we do the email first or the stories?
I'll do these stories.
Okay, yeah. We'll do the email so we can talk about it.
All right. So, first story by fastcompany.com. Humanity's 30 million page backup plan is heading to the moon. When SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket took off on Thursday night, it carried humanity's entire backup plan with it. It was headed to the moon, the world's ultimate cold storage unit. The Arch Mission Foundation, AMF, created the Lunar Library, a 30 million page long compendium of humanity's greatest cultural offerings, encoded it on a specially designed disk meant to last 1 billion years.
Wow.
And sent it to the moon to keep it safe. The disk is being carried to its final resting place on the moon's surface aboard Beresheet, the Israeli spacecraft and Google Lunar X Prize contender that was carried to space by the Falcon 9, CNET reports. The Lunar Library contains a vast archive of human history and civilization, covering all subjects, cultures, nations, languages, genres, and time periods. Everything from the contents of Wikipedia to a compilation of human languages, the Rosetta Project, books selected by Project Gutenberg, as well as genome maps, 60,000 analog images of pages of books, photographs, illustrations, and documents, and much of the world's greatest art, music, literature, and scientific knowledge. It's all encoded on a disk that is composed of 25 nickel disks.
Wow.
Each only 40 microns thick, made for the AMF by Nano Archival. The Lunar Library is the third installment in the Arch Mission Foundation's billion-year archive initiative, which aims to deliver cultural backups to many locations around Earth and out in the solar system. We can definitely preserve our unique cultural heritage and biological record in a way that will survive for millions to billions of years, Nova Spivak, co-founder and chairman of the Arch Mission Foundation, said in a statement about an earlier mission. In February, when SpaceX's Falcon Heavy made its maiden voyage, the AMF sent along a data crystal containing Isaac Asimov's seminal Foundation trilogy of sci-fi novels, and they placed a solid-state copy of Wikipedia on a CubeSat from Space Chain in low Earth orbit.
Wow.
It's all part of AMF's mission to keep humanity's history safe, as Spivak noted last year. Through massive replication around the solar system, we will be able to guarantee that the Arch libraries will never be lost, even millions to billions of years in the future.
Yeah.
That's freaking cool, dude. I had no idea. So
the first thing I thought of when you were telling me about that was that if we're doing it now, somebody's also done this before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we are going to believe in an ancient advanced civilization, then why wouldn't they have tried to do the same thing? Eventually you get to a point and you start looking in the past and you see all this destruction and you're like, we got to save stuff.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So
I was curious, and they don't say anything about it in the article, and I haven't looked further into it, but how are they encoded? Right.
So are there instructions for decoding it?
So I thought of that too. Is like, would you do something where you're encoding it for us if technology remains?
Yeah, well, on there's just a little picture that shows the guy sliding the CD into the CD player. This is how you read it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Something like that.
Did they send a CD player is the question.
Right. But what a great idea for a project. And apparently, I thought I remember reading that they were going to be sending them to, Mars and other planets as well in the solar system.
Yeah.
Eventually. But
the safest place for them will be in orbits.
harder to find.
Harder to find, yeah. Well, it's not easy to find stuff on a planet either. Planets are big.
That's true. But if you pick some kind of land feature that's
prominent.
Prominent.
So your best bet then is like a potato, like one of Mars's moons maybe, but of course those aren't going to be in orbit for 1 billion years. They have unstable orbits.
Yeah.
But like if you pick a small moon that otherwise is basically desolate like ours.
Yeah,
but our moon is big. But if you have a small moon that's desolate then like a magnetic scan can easily see,
Right.
you know.
There's ways you could make it findable, but if it was in orbit, it would be a little bit more difficult because it'd be hauling ass.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, I thought that was really cool. Next story.
What would be really crazy is if in finding places to place our arcs, we find an older one.
Yeah, that'd be cool. There's already a lot of stuff around here where there could be.
Yes.
You know, but it's like people like Zahiwas are like, there's nothing there left to find. All right. Fakes news. Fox News reports dead humpback whale discovered in Brazil's Amazon jungle puzzles researchers. Biologists were baffled to discover the body of a humpback whale being picked by vultures in the midst of trees and shrubbery in Brazil's Amazon jungle in late February. The sea creature, which is roughly 26 feet long, was found dead about 50 feet from the shore of Araruna Beach, the Brazilian nonprofit Bicho de Agua Institute says.
Pretty good.
It is not an adult animal, nor as large as it seems in the pictures.
Right.
You know what
these pictures, it looks way bigger in these pictures than it really is.
The conservation group explained in an Instagram post on Sunday, sharing several pictures of the whale carcass. A team from the region's Municipal Secretariat of Health, Sanitation and Environment, SEMMA, was alerted to investigate the incident. Marine experts with Bicho de Agua believe a powerful tide may have launched the whale inland. Powerful tides do not throw things. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you're saying, right?
I'm saying powerful tides
don't throw stuff.
They don't launch things. And maybe they missed.
Is there any other evidence of a powerful tide besides the whale? That's the next question.
It's not. It didn't look like it from the picture,
right?
Because the trees just look normal,
right?
The ground
they don't look like they were inundated with water,
right?
Yeah,
it's just retarded. Anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of the story.
I'm going to launch this whale with my powerful tide.
They're going to do they're going to do what do they call it? Not an autopsy, like a necropsy or whatever they call it, to try to figure out what killed it. And then the rest of the story, they go into how plastics are like everywhere.
I'll tell you what killed it.
This kind of stuff.
Blunt force trauma to the head.
Yeah, right. No, it's blunt force plastic to the stomach. Is what that's
what they're guessing.
Like the whole rest of the story is basically about how terrible plastics in the ocean are, which, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, this
blunt force plastic to the stomach. God. What kind of whale is it?
It's a humpback whale.
Okay, so it does have teeth, so it could swallow plastic. Baleen whales can't swallow plastic.
Yeah. Well, that may have killed it, but the fact is it's like
way inland,
50 feet from the shore.
Yeah,
and it's 20 feet long. It's inside the brush and the trees
in
and
the jungle. Yeah,
it's like if there was a tide that powerful,
right?
I'm just saying,
even a rogue wave,
whale nados. That's what I'm saying.
Whale nados.
Next story.
Wait. The Watcher says plastics in the ocean open portals that transport animals into the Amazon. That's right. It's interacting with the Bermuda Atlantis pyramids.
Yeah.
And teleporting whales into Brazil or something. Yep. Wait, that's way far away from Bermuda Triangle. I guess a portal doesn't care how far away something is. Anyway, next story.
Maybe he swallowed too many Glad bags. Okay. SFGate.com reports. Now, this was actually February 12th. But I saved it in my bookmarks and then never got to it until just now. Yosemite firefall phenomenon is here, but visitors say getting there is treacherous and unsafe.
Right.
So this firefall.
Yeah, the pictures of this are beautiful as well.
Yeah, the horsetail fall natural phenomenon, commonly known as firefall in Yosemite National Park. This is the caption for the picture. It was captured on Monday, February 18th, 2019. The lava-like effect only occurs in mid-late February. And something just popped up, and now I lost it.
Freaking websites. They're terrible.
When the setting sun hits. So there's like a specific time of year, the setting sun passes over the cliff in just the right way to light up this tiny waterfall stream that's coming down off of Yosemite. And it's just awesome. So all these people, it's become like a more and more popular thing for photographers and people to go see.
Yeah.
In mid to late February. So this time, as we know, there was the weird polar vortex situation or whatever it was. There was all this crazy snowfall. And the park was like, well, we're going to try to limit the crowd sizes. So they closed the parking lot that was near the falls, which was only it took you like a few minutes to walk from the parking lot to where you could view the falls.
Right.
So now people had to walk miles in this waist deep snow.
Man.
And then the park rangers were like pulling people over and fining them if they were walking on the road.
Oh my God. So
So
they're
people
walking
were
through the wilderness.
We're walking through the wilderness and getting like stuck. And so like the people that were interviewed in the story are basically saying like, yeah, it was cool though. Like this really sucks that the park did this, but everybody was helpful and helping, people were helping other people. And so they kind of had this whole like community thing going where they were all helping each other get there and get back and all this kind of stuff. But I was just like, dude, obviously these park rangers want people to 411. They're trying to help out the Neffas, dude. They're like, okay, there's a lot of snow, so we'll close the parking lot and we won't let them walk on the road so that they will freaking glad.
Go out into the wilderness and glad.
It's just,
yeah. That's also classic, like, government's trying to stop people from doing what they want and people do it anyway and help each other do it.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't get enough money for our park services. It's like, you want to know why? Things like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're operating
Like what
the
they should have
wrong
done
way.
was got the snow plows out there. Like everybody's going to want to see it. Plowed everything out and got it all like
cleared it off all awesome.
Yeah, and so that they could like
Safely get there.
Bring some vendors down there, man. I mean, there's a business model here.
Yeah.
Park.
Yeah. Nope.
Anyway.
I mean, like, I noticed this, and I don't want to talk a whole lot of shit about the NPS.
Do it.
But, like, when the Watcher and I went down to Big Bend, there was a similar thing of just, like, of sort of trying to, they're talking about impact, right? The impact that the visitors to the park have on their park. And like how they don't like this impact that, it's like, I'm just like, hold on a second. It's called public land for a reason,
Yeah.
It's a public park. Your job is not to keep us from coming here and having an impact on it.
Right.
Oh, man. No, yeah, we want to preserve it for future generations. No, that's not what you want to do, because in the future, you're going to just have worse rules for those generations.
Right.
Yeah.
You just want to be a jerk face.
That's right. All right. So on Twitter yesterday, before I basically said, look, tomorrow we're going to record the show. And does anybody have any questions, comments, or topic requests? And we did get a lot of topic requests, some of which I will go through in a minute. But one was sent in an email from Patrick. I wanted to read this from Patrick Hicks. He says, hey, guys, as always, loving the show. The pyramids are keeping me up at night. I mean, even more so than before. Too many questions. I would like to hear you guys discuss the why, in your opinion, Skirptards Skirpderp at this point. Like, is it a giant conspiracy to intentionally keep people uninformed? Is it an arrogance in the development of the scientific community over time? I mean, so often you will point something out, and I find myself pulling my hair out wondering why nobody is looking at this. Anyway, look forward to what's next, and you guys should totally sell t-shirts. Yes, to all of that, I would say. Yes.
Well, to save yourself some time, pull your beard hairs out. 'Cause you'll have to shave less and you'll still have a full head of hair. Because I'm doing the same thing, bro.
Yeah. Yes. But I'm saying yes to all of it. Like, is it a giant conspiracy to intentionally keep people uninformed? Yes. Is it an arrogance in the development of scientific community over time? Yes. It's both of those things. Right?
And a few other things.
Yes.
Probably.
Neffas and long heads.
That's right.
And whoever the breakaway people are, and all of those ancient Martians that are down there in the Antarctic. Yeah. All of those things are keeping us from knowing the true history of the world. And yes, we should sell T-shirts.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, but the true history of the world is dangerous for
Current power structures.
exactly.
In some ways, yeah. Yeah. Like if your point is to try to keep power over people, you don't want people looking to the past to find out how they did things. If there is, and this is why they have this whole, like, if you see this whole thing about the golden age fallacy, like, that drives me nuts. They're trying to get it set up as that it's a fallacy to think that there was some point in the past where everything was awesome, or that there was that they're trying to say that is an actual fallacy. If they call it the golden age fallacy, It's not fallacious. It's an idea.
Yeah.
But that shows you the level of like resistance to this idea and you know, like what John Anthony West called the Church of Progress, this linear development model that must be maintained, that we are the pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
And if we are the pinnacle, then we have the best answers, and looking to the past for any other alternative answers is ridiculous.
Yeah. I have the view that the golden age idea is ridiculous in certain respects because everything sucks no matter where you are. You know, you got to make the best of it or it sucks.
Right.
So, but there are
even for Nefas, life sucks and then you die.
Yeah, that's right. So I believe that there were times in the past where there were things that in other words, ways of life or possibly technology, etc., that we could learn from. That's not to say that it was a golden age and like that all the crystals were glowing and everybody, oh my God, we were all one. It's like that I think is.
I mean, the
is
crystals
BS.
might have been glowing, but we probably weren't all one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The magnetic field was just so powerful. We could all communicate telepathically. You know.
That would be awful.
Right. I don't want to know what you're thinking while I'm trying to sleep.
That's right. No wonder they had a problem with Babel.
That's right. So, to a certain degree, I think that, but I definitely think that we have so much to learn from the past, and I think that includes technology.
Yes.
Not all technology is like you could imagine ways, and many science fiction writers have imagined many different ways that technology could, like streams of technology could go and develop in certain ways. We have one. Or you could say many due to the various geniuses that develop certain things in various different fields.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be that way.
I would say that I would just postulate the idea that, and we've probably said this before on the podcast too, that if there was a cataclysm tomorrow, that 3 generations down the line now would be remembered as a golden age.
Exactly.
So
doesn't mean everything
everything is perfect. But it does mean that like stuff is crazy, you know, that like, in other words, we're not living, we're not picking pears and pushing plows, right?
Right.
We're not living like subsistence living off the land as best we can and chasing fresh water and game all over the world, wearing butt flaps.
And running from weather.
Or giant animals or whatever. Yes. Like, so if you can imagine that now would be considered a golden age if there was a giant global cataclysm tomorrow, then you can easily imagine how the same thing could be thought of a previous golden age. And calling it a golden age and saying that it was badass does not mean that everything was perfect and that we could communicate telepathically and all the crystals were glowing like you were talking about. I agree with you that there is that sort of...
you run into that mindset a lot.
Yes.
I'm not agreeing with the idea that in and of itself, it could be a fallacy. It might. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. But that particular angle of looking at it, I disagree with. So
which one?
The one where it's just like, you know, the viewpoint that like there was this period in the past that was just all rosy.
Oh, yeah. No. Rosy in comparison to what happened afterwards is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's always problems.
Right.
You're going to have golden age problems.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have post-cataclysm problems.
Golden age problems. I can see those memes coming up.
Golden age problems.
My crystal doesn't glow as much as it used to.
Golden age problems.
I only have one champagne bucket in my bowling pin hat. Golden age problems.
My shoulder rivers only have 3 salmon swimming up them. Golden age problems.
Yeah.
I'm getting too fat for my manfish suit.
But yeah, I definitely think that to me the main thing is that for current power structures, true history is dangerous. And just think about the idea of the let's just say one of these theories or whatever, that these ideas like that civilization actually goes back. There's like this previous age where there was high technology or whatever, or perhaps a civilization that lived in Antarctica before the ice was there, and they had high technology or whatever, and the Sphinx is incredibly old, 30,000 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Like how much that would rearrange the idea of indigenous populations.
Yeah.
And there are massive wars going on all over the place and have been for hundreds of years, possibly more than that, thousands of years, that are based on this idea that we came from there and now you have it.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry. I'm still thinking of Golden Age memes, Golden Age problem memes.
I'm just trying to point out like one way.
I want one of those man bags that were made in Ur. Paleo squirrels are living my tree of life and eating all the fruit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I totally missed your entire point because I was thinking about Golden Age memes. Sorry.
It's all good. I'm done.
Okay. I can't respond because I don't know what you were talking about.
I was just talking about the indigenous problem. Like if it was found to be true, like let's say they discover a library of knowledge and information under the Sphinx in those open chambers, and it basically records all of this stuff from a previous civilization that came from wherever else thousands and thousands of years ago, and leads us to more evidence on the ground, say in Antarctica or wherever, that they came from. And that would basically rewrite the whole story of where people came from.
Oh, yeah.
And so all of, there's wars going on all over the globe and have been for thousands of years where people are fighting over a land that was theirs.
Right.
And that just, it's and based on things from the current model that we look at, right?
Yes.
The current accepted model.
Right. So that could upset the apple cart of all kinds of things.
All kinds of things.
Yeah. Yep. Like the, what was the name of that guy that they found in California, in Southern California?
Kennewick Man?
Yes. Kennewick Man.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. What time we got here?
The new sport utility Viamana has horrible mileage. Has horrible mercury mileage.
Yeah, I'm gonna now. You got me thinking about memes again. I'm not gonna be able to do the show. I'm just sitting here thinking about like
that was the Watchers.
Yeah, I know. Now I'm thinking about it again. Like I want to start complaining about the toilet paper that they're gonna wrap me in. Or, again, it's not the right toilet paper. I want the 3-ply. You're gonna wrap me in toilet paper before you mummify me. It needs to be 3-ply toilet paper. I want to be resurrected in the northern hemisphere, not in the southern hemisphere stars. I don't want to be down there in the southern hemisphere. All right. I think we're at a break.
Just take a break.
Yeah. Let's take a break.
You wanted to get into the weeds on this other stuff, so might as well stop right now.
What?
You don't want to start getting into the weeds and then have to take a break in 2 minutes.
Yes, that's exactly right. I'm ready to get in the weeds, so let's stop.
Break time. Gus is about to get into more of the requests
Yep.
from Twitter for Brothers of the Serpent podcast. We always talk about exactly what you want us to talk about, which is always exactly what we want to be talking about, which is always pyramids, dolmens,
Yeah. Dolmens. Pyramids. Megaliths.
magnets.
But before I get into this, I want to bring the Watcher on because he has some interesting information about this whale.
Oh, speaking of that,
Oh, yeah.
sorry, folks, but I totally set the Watcher to the wrong input channel. So, in the first segment there, you're just going to have to turn it up real loud to hear what he's saying. I'm going to try to fix it.
He's going to try to boost it a bit, but yeah. The mics basically picked him up coming over our headphones because we weren't recording him properly. So, but now we are, right, Watcher?
Zero mistakes. Handling all technical difficulties flawlessly.
All right, so tell us about this. Tell us what you found about this whale thing.
Okay, so it happened at a place called Araruna Beach in Brazil, which is technically a river beach, the Rio Paraquari. It's close to where it comes out and actually empties out into the ocean, but this whole concept, high tide, like the high tide pushed the whale upriver and then
threw him
the river threw the whale 50 feet. Apparently, like that's the best explanation I can come up with. So,
Right,
yeah,
so-
I thought that was interesting.
So the whale for some reason went up into a freshwater river, and then there was a massive ocean tide that threw the whale 50 feet out of the river.
Correct.
Right.
Now, apparently, the river has waves like an ocean, so maybe it was a river tsunami. I mean, you never know.
A river nami.
So, how far up the river was he?
I can't find details on that, but this beach is several hundred yards up from where the water's brackish. So this is actually fresh water.
Right, and the water just gets brackish where it comes close to the ocean, so that's not even at the ocean. Yeah, so it's several hundred yards up from the brackish area, which is still not in the ocean yet. It's just the where the river empties out and towards the ocean.
Right, so
And
the
so
salt water
the
where this
mixes,
whale would normally be is really far away.
That's very strange.
So they went up there and they were like, how did this whale get here? And the scientist was like, well, it's probably a high tide. I was like,
Whale?
well, I guess it was high tide. Sorry, that was a terrible joke.
It's only really strange if you've never considered a river's ability to throw large mammals.
Maybe we're talking about a cryptid here. There is a river monster that threw the whale out of its domain.
Maybe there was like when the tide came in, it swelled up like on the back of the tide. There was a big hump. And it pushed him on the hump back of the tide.
The tide caused a hump
In the back of it.
in the river, and in whale just threw
The
him
whale,
out.
the hump on the back of the tide just threw him up there.
Kyle, I've never been so proud of you and so disappointed at the same time.
Too bad nobody was there watching, whale watching.
Watcher.
Whale watching? Anyway.
I do think. Well,
Did we just lose your connection there, Watcher?
Sounds like
No,
it.
I just muted myself.
Oh, okay.
No.
I do think it's I mean, we're making a bunch of jokes, but I do think it's a very interesting mystery.
Yeah.
Like, of course, I start thinking about strange rainfalls. Of course, I've never heard of a rainfall of
Well,
whales.
yeah, that's immediately what I thought of.
Okay, yeah.
Like fish falling from the sky?
Yeah,
A
this is just
big
one
fish.
giant fish that fell from
Right.
the sky. Yeah, even though they're technically mammals. So anyway, not even technically, they are mammals. Okay, let's see. So I requested All right, I sent out this thing on Twitter. Let me find it. I should have had it pulled up, but I am totally not prepared here.
Maybe it was a water spout.
Keep them coming till I find this.
Don't bring up bees, because I got bee jokes all day.
So one of the requests we got from Hill2 or at LearnBeeStuff on Twitter was, have you guys done a psychedelic episode? Maybe benefits of microdosing. And I just said that I don't know enough about it. I've read about it. Obviously, I've read Graham Hancock's book about the ayahuasca. I think it's called Supernatural, but I don't know enough about seeking enlightenment that way. So that would be So another suggestion we had was from Alex Coppersmith, who started listening to us because of the pyramids episodes we just did. But anyway, he said, are you guys familiar with Alan Green and his work deciphering codes in Shakespeare's work? And I have heard of that, but I haven't gone down the rabbit hole. And I told him, I was like, that's a great idea. It's going to take a lot of show prep, though. And he was like, yeah, this rabbit hole is like incredibly deep and enormous. So like, take your time.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, we'll probably dive into that at some point. Thanks for the suggestion, buddy. Seriously. And this guy, Laser Printer Jam, at Laser Printer Jam said, the moon! Which is also a fantastic suggestion.
Yeah.
We did an episode on the moon, and I sent it to him, episode 38, Spaceship, a Moonship. So, but there's so many mysteries on the moon that we could always go back to it. And I'm still waiting for Randall Carlson's book about the moon, the one that he keeps threatening to write, where he has all this data that he's amassed on how strange the moon is. And I do have some other books that other people wrote about all the mysteries of the moon, some NASA guys and other astronomers talking about. I think we went through some of it, just all the strange stuff on the moon and how it's totally a spaceship. So. It's an artificial object. It's no moon.
It is a harsh mistress.
So those were the suggestions, but the one that we're going to follow is from History Shift, and he said, how about looking into untranslated or undeciphered texts? So that's one that I do know some stuff about and didn't require weeks of show prep to do.
Yeah, because you asked this question today, right? Or was it yesterday?
Yesterday. I asked it last night. Yeah. When I realized that I hadn't done any show prep for this show yet. I was like, and everybody's asking me, Kyle's asking me, and Brett's asking me, so what is the show going to be about? I'm like, hey, Twitter. You guys got any suggestions? You guys help me out. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of articles here that should get us started with this topic. And two of them are lists, but we'll start with those. So the first one I want to go through is from, it's Live Science, called Cracking Codices, 10 of the Most Mysterious Ancient Manuscripts. Dating back hundreds to thousands of years, codices can reveal much about an ancient culture. That is, if you can decipher the text. Often written in an outdated language with unfamiliar grammar, these codices take careful analyses to crack their meanings. Some continue to completely baffle archaeologists and other scientists, while others have divulged just enough of their meaning to intrigue. From an Egyptian book full of magic spells to a text written in an unknown language, Live Science takes a look at 10 of the most mysterious ancient manuscripts. So the first one is called Liber Lenteus. I may not be pronouncing these correctly. Preserved in the wrappings of an Egyptian mummy, this text is written in Etruscan, and a language that was used in Italy in ancient times, dating back about 2,200 years. The mummy and its removed wrappings are now in the Zagreb Museum in Croatia. The text meaning is not entirely clear. It was classified as a funerary calendar in the past, but nowadays it is usually labeled as a ritual calendar, although months are only mentioned from column 6 onwards. Lammert Boek van der Meer, a professor at Leiden University, wrote in an essay published in the book Votives, Places and Rituals in Etruscan Religion. In ancient Egypt, it was common for materials to be reused as mummy wrappings or to make mummy masks. Additionally, trade was widespread in the Mediterranean in ancient times, and it was not unusual for goods to be transported between Italy and Egypt, according to ancient records and archaeological finds. So, somebody used this text to wrap a mummy in. And if they found it, they're like, wait a minute, this isn't toilet paper, this has writing on it, right? So they unwrap it, and Oh, Liber Lenteus is Latin for linen book.
Cool.
Thank you, Watcher. So the next one is, I don't know what to say about that one. I don't know a whole lot about Etruscan. It's strange that they're calling it a calendar when the guy is like, dude, they don't even talk about months until like column 6 or whatever.
Yeah, wrap me in a book about pyramids when I die. Just, I mean, come on.
Yeah. If I can't be buried in a pyramid, wrap me in a book about pyramids. Okay, the next one is Gospel of the Lots of Mary. The Gospel of the Lots of Mary, as the ancient text is called, is a gospel like no other, written in Coptic, which is an Egyptian language, and dating back around 1500 years. The Gospel of the Lots of Mary does not discuss the life of Jesus, but instead contains a series of 37 oracles written vaguely with only a few words that mention Jesus. The opening of the book begins as follows. The Gospel of the Lots of Mary, the mother of the Lord Jesus Christ, she to whom Gabriel the archangel brought the good news. He who will go forward with his whole heart will obtain what he seeks, only do not be of two minds. That's a weird thing to say. The text, now at Harvard University, was deciphered and details were published in 2014 by Anne Marie Luigendick. I can't even say it. A professor in the Department of Religion at Princeton University. In her book, Forbidden Oracles, The Gospel of the Lots of Mary, she wrote that the gospel would have been used for divination, an attempt to predict the future. A person seeking an answer to a question could have sought out the owner of this book, asked a question, and gone through a process that would randomly select one of the 37 oracles to help find a solution to the person's problem. How the process would have worked is unknown, though it's unclear how the book reached the United States. It was donated to Harvard in 1984.
Lugendijk.
Lugendijk. Okay, thank you.
I don't know.
Lugendijk. Dresden Codex. This one's interesting. The Dresden Codex is a Mayan text dating back around 800 years. It contains 39 beautifully illustrated sheets with texts and images on both sides. Research published in 2016 in the Journal of Astronomy and Culture indicates the codex records the phases of the planet Venus so that the Maya would be certain that their ceremonial events were being held on the correct day. The Maya had a really elaborate ritual set of events that were tied to the calendar, researcher Gerardo Aldana, a science historian at the University of California, Santa Barbara, told Live Science. They were probably doing large-scale ritual activity connected to the different phases of Venus. Right, ritual activity, like studying astronomy is ritualistic.
That's right.
The Codex first appeared in Europe at the Royal Library in Dresden, Germany, in the 1730s. How it got there is unclear. Many Mayan texts were destroyed by zealous Christian missionaries trying to wipe out any non-Christian beliefs. And the next one is a Christian text, Gospel of Judas, 2006. So I've heard of the Dresden Codex, by the way. Go back to that. And I remember, didn't Feynman talk about it? He looked at one of those things and was talking about how it was Venus. Didn't Feynman look at one of the...
His wife was like really into pyramids. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And so they went somewhere. I'm trying to remember where. I think it may have been in South America or Central America somewhere.
He was bored by
and
the
she
pyramids.
was off running around on pyramids, and he was just like, I'm going to stay in the hotel room today because I'm tired of running around on pyramids.
Yeah, sweating in the jungle.
And he was like looking at the pamphlet that they had, that the sort of visitors center or whatever had given, and they had some of the text in there.
Yeah.
And on the back they had the
images,
the translation.
Oh.
So he like blocked off the translation. He was like, I'm going to see if I can translate this stuff.
Yeah.
So he like spends all day in the hotel room like translating this ancient glyphs or whatever from Central America, and he starts to figure out that it's basically figuring out the orbits of various planets or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And it's like mathematical, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's Mars,
right?
That's Venus, that's this and that, And then he flips over to the back, and he's like, "Yeah, he knew he was right,
right?"
And he flips over to the back, and it was just all, just like, oh, they were worshiping the god, blah blah blah, and
oh man,
blah, 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 and it was just all the woo woo stuff,
Yeah.
And he was like, "What?"
Yeah. This is an astronomical mathematical text.
Exactly.
They were not worshiping the god, whatever you thought they were. Yeah. The Gospel of Judas. In 2006, the National Geographic Society published a translation of the 3rd century text called the Gospel of Judas that may depict Judas Iscariot, who in the New Testament betrayed Jesus, in a positive light. Some scholars claim that the text written in Coptic describes Jesus asking Judas to betray him so that he could be crucified and thus ascend into heaven. However, experts disagree over the translation and interpretation of the text. A professor of religion at Rice University in Houston said the text actually declares Judas to be a demon or a daemon. Tests on the Gospels, Inc. indicate that it is authentic, according to a team led by microscopist Joseph Barberet of Macron Associates in Illinois. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Jesus is like, hey, bro, I need to be crucified so I can go to heaven.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
Can't you just do it some other way? Treatise of the Vessels. A bas relief.
I need you to be hated forever.
Yeah. A bas relief showing the Ark of the Covenant being carried away from the Auch Cathedral in France. Okay, so the Treatise of the Vessels is a Hebrew text that claims to reveal where treasures from King Solomon's temple were hidden and discusses the fate of the Ark of the Covenant. The text says the Ark, along with other treasures, shall not be revealed until the day of the coming of the Messiah, son of David, putting it out of reach of any would-be treasure seekers. The earliest surviving copy of the text dates to 1648. That's not very long ago. James de Vila, a professor at University of St. Andrews in Scotland, studied and translated that copy of the text. He says the writer draws on traditional methods of scriptural exegesis, or interpretation, to deduce where the treasures might have been hidden, but I think the writer was approaching the story as a piece of entertaining fiction, not any kind of real guide for finding the lost temple treasures, he told Live Science in an email.
Sounds about right.
Davila published his translation and interpretation of the text of the book, Old Testament Pseudepigrapha. I think I'm saying that right. More Non-Canonical Scriptures, Volume 1. So, of course, another one saying, like, here's where all these treasures are. And people are like, it's fiction.
Yeah.
It's not real. Don't even bother looking.
Yeah. Copper scrolls.
We already have these locked up in the Area 51. Okay, the Popol Vuh. The Popol Vuh, which translates to Book of Counsel, is a mythical origin story told by the Quiche Maya, who are based in Guatemala. According to the stories, the forefather gods Tepu and Cucumats brought forth the earth from a watery void and endowed it with animals and plants, wrote Michael Coey, a professor at Yale University. The story says that the gods had difficulty creating humans and describes how they eventually created hero twins. Hunapu and, wow, how do you pronounce something that starts with XB? Xbalanque. The twins embarked on a series of adventures which included defeating the lords of the underworld. The earliest surviving copy of the Popol Vuh dates to 1701. What?
Xbalanque probably means alien.
Right. Stranger.
Yeah.
White stranger. Blanque.
The shining one.
Yeah. It was recorded in Spanish by the Dominican priest Francisco Ximenez. A copy of the text is in the Newberry Library in Chicago. Man, some of these are translated. I don't understand. Okay, Copper Scroll.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted this article, because the Copper Scroll's in it. The Copper Scroll is a Hebrew text inscribed on copper sheets found in Cave 3 at the Qumran in the Judean desert, along with other Dead Sea Scrolls. The text records details of a vast amount of hidden treasure that includes gold, silver, vessels, and coins. The scroll dates to around AD 70, a time when the Roman army laid siege to Jerusalem and the Second Temple was destroyed. Scholars continue to debate whether the treasure described in the scrolls is real or mythical. To date, no buried treasure as large as that was described in the Copper Scroll has been found in Israel or Palestine. If the treasure is real, it could have been found in ancient times, or it might be somewhere else, guys. So there's the next one is the Grolier Codex, but I think we should take a break. Are we on the break?
Yeah.
Yes, we are on the break. All right. We'll come back with the Grolier Codex and further strange ancient texts after this break. pyramids tied behind our backs just to make it square, but still with 2 air shafts.
4.
No, just half a pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
2 shafts.
That's right. 2 shafts. Only half. That's right.
Brothers of the Serpent podcast. We are back to talk about ancient codices and untranslated texts. But during the break, the Watcher and I were discussing the Voynich manuscript, which we did a whole podcast on before. And we were talking about the strange writing in there and the strange plants that don't seem to match anything known on Earth. And I started thinking about that guy. I was thinking maybe the Voynich, so remember that CIA document about the guy who they got to remote view Mars?
Yeah.
Go back a million years in Mars. But he doesn't know he's looking at Mars. But he goes back a million years and he tells them, I'm in the middle of some crazy geological event, so I can't see anything. There's dust and lava everywhere or whatever.
Right.
They're like, go back past before the geological event and tell us what you see. Well, do you remember in that text or in that document that the guy goes back before that and he encounters these beings? He says they were very strange, very large, lanky looking beings, Martians, I guess. But the interesting thing is that they were aware of him. Do you remember that? That he was actually able to, that they were aware that he was there. So his remote viewing self, whatever that is, his consciousness, these beings were able to perceive it. And we realized that that's why they came here. They followed his soul trail.
Oh, holy smokes.
That's right. So think about that.
Thank you, NASA.
The CIA gets somebody to remote view Mars, and that's the reason why we got long heads and nephas and pyramids everywhere, because they came here. Because they were like, wait a minute, there's a consciousness remote viewing us from this other planet when ours is about to get destroyed and we got to leave, and why don't we just go there? Obviously, it can support life, right? There's this guy coming from this place. So they came here millions of years ago, and that's why we have all this crazy shit.
Holy shit, man.
It's a fantastic time paradox, circular logic.
That's pretty good.
Everything's explained.
Well, when you're remote viewing, who cares what time it is?
Wouldn't that be nuts, though, if that's why
crazy.
they came here, because they got remote viewed by somebody from the future from this planet.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
I don't know if I can explain this, but I want to go on this topic for a minute.
Okay.
I was listening to Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape.
Yeah.
And they interviewed Laird Scranton.
Yes. That's a fantastic interview.
As you all know, I've been trying to figure out how the universe works and listening to all my lovable materialist reductionist physicists tell me
Lovable.
how the universe is expanding rapidly, and the dark matter and whatever.
Yes.
Dark energy, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Laird Scranton was describing the Dogon and how they looked at time and space and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, one of the ideas was that, and you've said this multiple times, that the in the other world, the spirit realm, there's perfect knowledge because
they have that all of time is there at once, or whatever.
Right. So everything is happening at once.
Or
right. So it's
is, will be,
right.
were happening.
We can't really describe it properly with our temporal words.
Yeah.
But all of time is the present. So there's perfect knowledge, but they lack the ability to act. And then in the physical realm where we are, time is spread out, and the present is one tiny minuscule aspect of all of time. But so we cannot have perfect knowledge, but we have the ability to act.
Right. Whereas in a place where all of time is one eternal instant, you can't act because there's no act.
Right. So
act requires choices, and anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Right. So the Dogon have this thing where they look at these cycles, these large cycles of motion of our planet, say in the universe, large cycles of time. You could take the precession of the equinoxes, for example, or you could look at the Vedic texts about, Brett, you know a lot about this, the Kali Yugas, the
Yeah.
These massive expansive time where things change, or you could
Yeah, the
look
Yuga
at
cycle.
The Yuga
Yeah.
cycle. You could look at the way they describe like the Golden Age and the Silver Age and the Iron Age, Bronze, and like the
Yeah.
you know, from the Age of Enlightenment down to like where, you know, we're I don't know, the Iron Age, I guess,
Yeah.
is where we're the least enlightened.
Yeah,
so
the
to
Kali
speak.
Yuga, the Iron Age, the
We're
most
coming
material.
We're coming out of that now, headed back towards a possible golden age. So
Yeah.
the way they kind of look at it
We
is
have Bronze Age problems, right?
right. Yeah, the way they kind of look at it is that in this cycle, in this cyclical process, the two worlds intersect at the golden age, and so that physics, in a sense, the physics of both worlds intersect at that period, so that we are almost completely in the physical realm right now.
Right. We're rotated completely out of
Right.
the-
So we are almost all physical, all ability to act, and very little knowledge.
Yeah.
But we're moving more towards the perfect knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. And the other world, the spirit realm, is moving more towards the physical.
Right. They're approaching the physicality. Yeah.
And there's a point where they sort of intersect, and that is when there's this age of enlightenment, when those from the realm of ability to have perfect knowledge can actually meet with or interact with, become physical in some way with those physical beings who have the ability to act, and the physical beings who have the ability to act become more able to have the ability to have perfect knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And so we can sort of communicate in a certain way.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I viewed it as them being like these rotating things on a camshaft or whatever, where they intersect and then they rotate out of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where they're on an offset. I have this.
How very materialist reductionist.
Yeah, I
of you
know,
to
right?
give
I'm
us
putting it into a
physical
machine
explanation of that. Anyway.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so it's basically like a camshaft.
Yeah, it's like a machine, right?
You are so Bronze Age. All right. So the
How
cool
very
thing
19th century of me.
So the cool thing was that looking at this idea of the universe expanding and the expansion of the universe accelerating and everything accelerating away from itself. And we've been talking about this a lot in very recent podcasts where, you know, the distances between us and everything else, every other large structure in the universe seems to be accelerating apart.
Yeah.
Is part of this process of us moving more towards this situation where
Time is expanded.
yes,
Yeah.
time is expanded.
That's why it looks far away or farther, like they're accelerating away, because the time is pouring into this universe in some way or another.
Right. So this also goes back to the whole, you know, compression and expansion of space time, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a really cool idea. Check out that podcast.
Yes. Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape with Laird Scranton was a
Yeah.
fantastic interview.
Freaking awesome. Okay, back to untranslatable text that somebody translated and told us what they meant.
Now I'm done with that article.
Did you? Yeah, you didn't vet that.
I didn't vet it. No, let's go to this one's called Ancient Writing Systems That Haven't Been Deciphered.
Okay.
Yet. Okay? All right. Sorry about that. The Indus Valley civilization was one of the most advanced in the world for more than 500 years, with more than 1,000 settlements sprawling across 250,000 square miles of what is now Pakistan and northwest India from 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE. It had several large, well-planned cities like Mohenjo-Daro, common iconography, and a script no one has been able to understand. Over at Nature, Andrew Robinson looks at the reasons why the Indus Valley script has been so difficult to crack and details some recent attempts to decipher it. Since we don't know anything about the underlying language and there's no multilingual Rosetta Stone, scholars have analyzed its structure for clues and compared it to other scripts. Most Indologists think it's logo-syllabic, a script like Sumerian cuneiform or Mayan glyphs, but they disagree about whether it was a spoken language or simply a full writing system. Some believe it represented only a part of the Indus language. One team has created the first publicly available electronic corpus of all Indus scripts. Another, led by computer scientist Rajesh Rao, analyzed the randomness in the script sequences Their test results indicate it's most similar to Sumerian cuneiform, which suggests it may represent a spoken language. Read the full article for more details. And I do have that, which I'm going to reference. The Indus Valley script is far from the only one to remain mysterious. Here are 8 others that you might try your hand at deciphering. 1. Linear A. In 1893, British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans purchased some ancient stones with mysterious inscriptions on them at a flea market in Athens. What's such auspicious beginnings?
Heck yes.
On a later trip to the excavations at Knossos on the island of Crete, he recognized one of the symbols from his stones and began a study of the engraved tablets being uncovered at various sites on the island. He discovered 2 different systems, which he called Linear A and Linear B. While Linear B was deciphered in the early 1950s, it turned out to represent an early form of Greek. Linear A has still not been deciphered. And the watcher pointed out something interesting about this, like why are there these multiple scripts in the same culture or whatever, and they're completely different from each other? You know,
It would be like mathematics and English.
could be. That's a good point.
One's not really a spoken language, you know.
Yeah,
If you're going to speak it, you got to write it out.
yeah. Imagine somebody Epsilon 64.
Yeah.
Now imagine somebody
Speaking
trying
like-
to translate our punch cards from like the 1940s or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there's these cards with holes all in them, and you're like 100110.
Well, another way to look at it is like the musical writing.
Yeah,
Like if it was found thousands of years in the future,
people would be trying to read it,
exactly,
and they would never be able to figure
and
it
they'd
out.
never be able to. Damn. I need to try to freaking play some cuneiform songs.
Just get a comb with metal, things, and just run it along the tablet.
Oh my God, that's genius. Roll a cylinder seal on it, dude. And it's a little, Oh, they were just music box cylinders.
That's right. Okay, the excavations on Crete also revealed a third type of writing system with symbols that looked more picture-like than those of the linear scripts. Some of those symbols are similar to elements in Linear A. It is assumed that the hieroglyphic script developed into Linear A, that the 2 systems were both in use during the same period. So again, now we have 3 different scripts. One of them looks hieroglyphic. So you have Linear A, Linear B, and this hieroglyphic script. 2 of them have never been able to be translated. One appears to be a form of Proto-Greek. So, very strange. Okay, 3, the Wadi El Hol script. There's just a picture here of 2 of them. I think there's very few. There's no other examples of it. In the 1990s, a pair of Yale archaeologists discovered a graffiti-covered cliff wall at the Wadi El Hol, or Gulch of Terror, in Egypt. Most of the inscriptions were in systems they could recognize, but one of them was very unfamiliar. It looks like an early transition from a hieroglyphic to an alphabetic system, but it hasn't yet been deciphered. That's what it looks like. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So I'll put these pictures in the
Looks
show
pretty
notes,
cool.
folks. Yeah, it looks cool. So it was just scratched on the wall in the canyon or whatever it is. Gulch of Terror. It's terrifying canyon. 4, the Sitovo inscription. In 1928, a group of woodcutters found some markings carved into a Bulgarian cliffside. They thought the marks indicated hidden treasure, but none was found. So they say. Word got around, and soon some archaeologists had a look. Later, the head of the expedition was executed for being a secret agent for the Soviets in Bulgaria. One piece of evidence used against him was a strange coded message he had sent to Kiev, which was actually just a copy of the cliffside inscription he had sent to colleagues for scholarly input. That's terrible. It is not clear what language the inscription represents. Thracian, Celtic, Sarmato, Alanian, and Slavic are some of the possibilities scholars have argued for. Another suggestion is that it's simply a natural rock formation.
Of course.
Yeah. No. This is secret Soviet spy inscriptions. 5, Olmec writing. Look at that.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
The Olmecs were an ancient Mexican civilization best known for the statues they left behind, the so-called colossal heads. In 1999, their writing system was revealed when road builders unearthed an inscribed stone tablet. I've never heard of this.
Never heard of that.
and I've looked at the Olmecs a lot. The tablets shows 62 symbols. Some look like corn or bugs, maybe, and some are more abstract. It has been dated to 900 BC. How? That's my question. Which would make it the oldest example of writing in the Western Hemisphere, if that's what it is. They look like bugs to you? Any bugs in there? Corn? You see any corn?
I see a cepha.
Yeah. Okay. The Singapore... What?
Walker sees a pineapple.
He sees a pineapple. The Singapore stone. There was once this giant engraved slab made of sandstone at the mouth of the Singapore River. It had been there for over 700 years or so when in 1819 workers uncovered it while clearing away jungle trees. A few scholars got a look at it before it was blown to bits in order to make space for a fort to protect the British settlements. The parts that didn't end up in the river were eventually used for road gravel, though some fragments were saved. The script has not yet been deciphered, but there have been various suggestions for what language it might represent. Ancient Ceylonese, Tamil, Kawi, Old Javanese, and Sanskrit. There's a piece of it right there. That doesn't look like Sanskrit to me. That looks more like Tibetan.
Yeah, I have no idea. Lame. Pave a road with it.
Wrongo. When the missionaries got to Easter Island in the 1860s, they found wooden tablets carved with symbols. They asked the Rapa Nui natives what the inscriptions meant and were told that no one knew anymore since the Peruvians had killed off all the wise men. The Rapa Nui used the tablets as firewood or fishing reels, and by the end of the century, they were nearly all gone. Rongo is written in alternating directions. You read a line from left to right, then turn the tablet 180 degrees to read the next line.
How do they know that?
I don't know. How do you know that if you can't read it?
Maybe that's the only bit of information that the natives gave them.
I don't know. Or maybe the symbols are obviously turned upside down on the next line or something. The same symbol. I know. It doesn't mean you turn it over.
Why would you do that?
Right.
Like, okay, we're going to inscribe
think about
this.
if you're writing on a paper and every time you finish a line, you have to spin the paper around.
Yeah, well, if you're writing on a stone wall, what are you going to do?
Hang me upside down while I write the next line. 8. Proto-Elamite. This ancient writing system was used more than 5,000 years ago in what is now Iran. Written from right to left, the script is unlike any other ancient scripts, while the Proto-Elamites appear to have borrowed the idea for a written language from their Mesopotamian contemporaries, which would be the Sumerians and the Egyptians. They apparently invented their own symbols and didn't bother to keep track of them in an organized way. Proto-Elamite expert and Oxford University scholar Jacob Dahl told the BBC in 2012. Around that time, he and his Oxford colleagues asked for help from the public in deciphering Proto-Elamite. They released high-quality images of the clay tablets covered in Proto-Elamite, hoping that crowdsourcing could decode them. Now there is a collaboration involving several institutions, and the project is ongoing.
Cool.
I didn't know about that either, Proto-Elamite.
Yeah, me either.
Okay, so I have this. That was a list of 8 interesting ones, but I have this article from nature.com called Ancient Civilizations Cracking the Indus Script.
How did the Watcher's asking, they decided on symbols, but they were unorganized? How did they know?
I don't know. That they didn't keep track of their symbols, like they were losing them or something? Yeah, and when you only have a very few examples of it, it's weird to say.
Yeah.
It seems more like we're the ones that are unorganized. Okay, so this is by Andrew Robertson. Look at that picture. Indus Valley stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
The Indus civilization flourished for half a millennium from about 2600 BC to 1900 BC. Then it mysteriously declined and vanished from view. It remained invisible for almost 4,000 years until its ruins were discovered by accident in the 1920s by British and Indian archaeologists. Following almost a century of excavation, it is today regarded as a civilization worthy of comparison with those of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia as the beginning of Indian civilization and possibly the origin of Hinduism. More than 1,000 Indus settlements covered at least 800,000 square kilometers of what is now Pakistan and northwestern India. It was the most extensive urban culture of its period, with a population of perhaps 1 million and a vigorous maritime export trade to the Gulf in cities such as Ur in Mesopotamia, where objects inscribed with Indus signs have been discovered. Astonishingly, the culture has left no archaeological evidence of armies or warfare, even though they were all killed all at once. Most Indus settlements were villages, some were towns, and at least 5 were substantial cities. The 2 largest, Mohenjo-Daro, a World Heritage Site listed by the United Nations, located near the Indus River, and Harappa, by one of the tributaries, boasted street planning and house drainage worthy of 20th century AD. They hosted the world's first known toilets, along with complex stone weights, elaborately drilled gemstone necklaces, and exquisitely carved seal stones featuring one of the world's stubbornly undeciphered scripts. The Indus script is made up of partially pictographic signs and human and animal motifs, including a puzzling unicorn. These are inscribed on miniature steatite soapstones, seal stones, terracotta tablets, and occasionally on metal. The designs are, quote, little masterpieces of controlled realism, with a monumental strength in one sense, out of all proportion to their size, and in another area entirely related to it, quote unquote. That's a strange quote.
That's a really weird.
Wrote the best-known excavator of the Indus civilization, Mortimer Wheeler, in 1968. Once seen, the seal stones are never forgotten. I became smitten in the late 1980s when tasked to research the Indus script by a leading documentary producer. He hoped to entice the world's code crackers with a substantial public prize. In the end, neither competition nor documentary got off the ground. But for me, important seeds were sown. More than 100 attempts at decipherment have been published by professional scholars and others since the 1920s. Now, as a result of increased collaboration between archaeologists, linguists, and experts in digital humanities, it looks possible that the Indus script may yet yield some of its secrets. Since the discovery of the Rosetta Stone in Egypt in 1799 and the consequent decipherment of the Egyptian hieroglyphs beginning in the 1820s, how do you say this? Epigraphers?
I don't know.
One of those have learned how to read an encouraging number of once enigmatic ancient scripts. For example, the Brahmi script from India was cracked in the 1830s. Cuneiform scripts, characterized by wedge-shaped impressions in clay, from Mesopotamia in the second half of the 19th century. The Linear B script from Greece in the 1950s, and the Mayan glyphs from Central America in the late 20th century. Several important scripts still have scholars scratching their heads. For example, Linear A, Etruscan from Italy, Rongo from Easter Island, the signs on the Phaistos disc from the Greek island of Crete, and of course, the Indus script. In 1932, Flinders Petrie, the most celebrated Egyptologist of his day, proposed an Indus decipherment on the basis of the supposed similarity of its pictographic principles to those of Egyptian hieroglyphs. In 1983, Indus excavator Walter Fairservice at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City claimed in Scientific American that he could read the signs in a form of ancient Dravidian, the language family from southern India that includes Tamil. In 1987, Assyriologist James Kinnear Wilson at the University of Cambridge, UK, published an Indo-Sumerian decipherment based on a comparison of the Indus signs with similar-looking ones in cuneiform accounting tablets from Mesopotamia. Accounting tablets.
Yeah. I paid you 10 rupees for my brain surgery. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
3 problems. In the 1990s and after, many Indian authors, including some academics, have claimed that the Indus script can be read in a form of early Sanskrit, the ancestral language of most North Indian languages, including Hindi. In doing so, they support the controversial views of India's Hindu nationalist politicians that there has been a continuous Sanskrit-speaking Indian identity since the 3rd millennium BC. Whatever their differences, all Indus researchers agree that there is no consensus on the meaning of the script. There are 3 main problems. First, no firm information is available about its underlying language. Was this an ancestor of Sanskrit or Dravidian, or of some other Indian language family, such as Munda? Or was it a language that has disappeared entirely? Linear B was deciphered because the tablets turned out to be an archaic form of Greek. Mayan glyphs because Mayan languages are still spoken. Second, no names of Indus rulers or personages are known from myths or historical records. No equivalents of Ramses or Ptolemy, who were known to hieroglyphic decipherers from records of ancient Egypt available in Greek. Third, There is as yet no Indus bilingual inscription comparable to the Rosetta Stone, written in Egyptian and Greek and Demotic. It is conceivable that such a treasure may exist in Mesopotamia, given its trade links with the Indus civilization. The Mayan decipherment started in 1876 using a 16th century Spanish manuscript that recorded a discussion in colonial Yucatan between a Spanish priest and a Yucatec Mayan-speaking elder about ancient Mayan writing. Wow, that's really cool.
That's how they got the Aymara or whatever?
This is the Mayan decipherment.
Mayan.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were talking about how that was still spoken.
Yeah, Maya. Some of the Maya stuff is still spoken in there. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it says. Mayan glyphs were translated because Mayan languages are still spoken, or at least
I thought
were.
there was a lot of the glyphs. They have no idea what it means still to this day.
Right, and they're in 3D too. The ones that are carved into the stone, have multiple ways that you can look at them, and they have layers.
Yeah.
So it's like
I found that out. I was like, man, I need to look at those up. And it was just like. Demon upside down. Demon looking to the right. Demon looking to the left. Demon looking down. Damn.
That's right.
Not sure what that means, but demons are everywhere and they can see everything.
Translation done. Next language. Demon looking down.
Demons built a spaceship.
I agree. When you look at them, you're like, yeah, this should be called demotic. This is what they should have called demotic, because clearly every word is a demon doing something.
That's right.
Demon looking down, demon looking up, demon staring straight at me.
That's right.
It's classic. All right, what we know. Indus scholars have achieved much in recent decades. A superb 3-volume photographic corpus of Indus inscriptions edited by the indefatigable Asko Parpola, an Indologist at the University of Helsinki.
Did they throw indefatigable? They just threw that in there
Indefatigable is what it's in there. Indefatigable.
Yeah, indefatigable.
Yeah.
Indus.
That's right. A superb 3-volume photographic corpus of Indus inscriptions edited by the indefatigable Asko Parpola, an Indologist at the University of Helsinki, was published between 1980. You see how I'm having trouble reading this? This article is a tongue twister.
Yeah. They were just trying to make it impossible to translate.
Was published between 1987 and 2010 with the support of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. A 4th and final volume is still to come. The direction of writing, chiefly right to left, has been established by analysis of the positioning of groups of characters in many differing inscriptions. The segmentation of texts containing repeated sequences of characters, syntactic structures, the numerical system, and the measuring system are partly understood. Views vary on how many signs there are in the Indus script. In 1982, archaeologist, Shikaripura Ranganatha Rao published a Sanskrit-based decipherment with just 62 signs. Parpola put the number at about 425 in 1994. An estimate supported by the leading Indus script researcher in India, Iravatham Mahadevan. At the other extreme is a high estimate of 676 signs, published this year by archaeologist and epigrapher Brian Wells. Nevertheless, almost every researcher accepts that the script contains too many signs to be either an alphabetic or a syllabary, in which signs represent syllables like linear B. It is probably a logo-syllabic script, such as Sumerian cuneiform or Mayan glyphs, that is a mixture of hundreds of demons. Representing words and concepts, such as the pound symbol. They show the percentage symbol and much so they're showing you how all these different symbols represent concepts, but we use them sometimes in our language too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like mathematics.
Yeah.
So I had this dream one time that I was, I guess, in the Giza Plateau or whatever, and I was looking at all these hieroglyphs, and I was able to, like, I suddenly realized how to translate them or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that led me down.
That would be awesome.
I woke up and I was like, whoa, I can freaking
I need to go read it right
Of course,
now.
I couldn't remember how to do it.
Yeah.
But I started looking at them and like doing all this, just looking at pictures of hieroglyphs and all this kind of stuff. And the thing
I remember that.
Yeah, the thing that caught me was the measurement stick, the cubit stick that they used. And they found a couple of these artifacts that they think they used them to do the measurements of the pyramids, and they were all different.
Yeah.
They kept finding different length ones.
Yeah.
And so they figured like, well, the cubit wasn't even standardized and this and that. And I was looking at one of these sticks and I was like, man, like it seems to me like there's maybe a ratio. It's all about ratios. It's not
right.
It's not like the stick is.
They're not using it as a measuring tape.
Right.
Yeah.
They're using it to determine ratios. And so that made me think that the symbols on it were possibly mathematical. Mm-hmm. But they looked a lot like other symbols. And so then I started thinking about what if, like, the idea that all this stuff carved into all this crap was just like
math,
a bunch of math.
Yeah.
And has anybody looked at that? Because I don't even freaking know enough math to to really be able to figure that out. But that's the other thing that Feynman did. Like, he's looking at all these, this Central American, I think it was Central American stuff, and he figures out that they're doing math, basically.
Yeah. Astronomy math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
which the Mayans were totally known for.
Right.
Calendrical.
Which is probably why he thought that, right?
Right.
How many scientists or mathematicians or whatever are looking at
ancient scripts?
Right.
Very few.
Trying to figure out, well, maybe these are not words, but symbols that represent mathematical concepts. I think that would be cool.
That would be cool. I think that there's too much of a stigma. They might be doing it privately.
Right, but of course,
being that
they were just dudes in butt flaps. Like,
right, being that highly educated, they have definitely been, quote unquote, indoctrinated with the idea that they were people in the past did not have anything interesting in terms of math. So why would they be looking at it, right?
Yeah, that was the other strange thing about Feynman, is that after he figured that out and then, was kind of disappointed with the interpretation that the pamphlet gave for the stuff, then he was like, but this is no big deal because obviously they can like stand out there and look at stars and like figure stuff out, right? And whatever.
Like,
it's like, yeah, you can, because you're a freaking genius, man.
Well, that was the same thing that he went to. He saw
the Antikythera.
Yeah, and he flipped out. He was like, "What the? Wait a minute! This is the most interesting thing in this museum, and no one's paying attention to it."
Right. Well, they had it in a back room, so he had to ask to go see it, and they let him go back there and check it out. Yeah, the Antikythera device
mechanism. Yeah, it was a computer for determining what demons were doing.
But yeah, so looking at these things, and that's right. That was to figure out what the angels were doing, because the demons were. That's obvious. So where was I going? I was going somewhere with this.
Well, let's take a break, and you can come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to take a break, and we'll come back for the final segment of the show, and Kyle will hopefully remember where he was going.
That's a great idea. Listening to the Super Bros bumper music. Whenever you are listening to the Super Bros bumper music, you are to be collecting coins and exploding brick walls.
Smashing walls to get inside of pyramids.
That's right. So play on the old Super Mario Brothers style 8-bit music.
Yep.
In techno form, in the
Super
21st
Bros.
century. Super Bros. Classic Snake Bros bumper music.
That's right.
So yeah, all right.
You remembered what you forgot.
That's right.
Okay.
After going back and listening twice to try to remember again. So what I was thinking was about on the subject of Egyptian hieroglyphs or some of these ancient untranslated languages. Specifically, I'm thinking of the Egyptian hieroglyphs in the context of if they are possibly mathematic,
Yeah.
some type of mathematical language. What would we do in modern times if we were trying to preserve our knowledge in some way, right? Other than sending nickel discs to the moon that needed to be read by a computer.
Right.
So I try to put myself in I guess this is kind of quite a...
Well, one thing we did, or we, the royal we, or I don't want to interrupt you, but the Georgia Guidestones is one of them.
Right.
Deep cut, 15 languages, all saying the same thing.
Right.
In a astronomically aligned granite megalithic construction that is pretty much invincible.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. The concept is pretty complex. In other words, I'm thinking specifically of a civilization that recently experienced a cataclysm.
Yeah.
Right. So if they knew they were limited or possibly dying out, or that their knowledge was dying,
Yeah.
or that it possibly would die, what would you do to preserve it? So what would we do? Right? We would make the lunar library, for example, but that requires a pretty high technology to discover.
Yeah.
So there would be other things, like if the destruction was more imminent, or it had just recently happened and we had lost the ability to have space flight or whatever, but we still had some technologies, would we record? Like, you can imagine mathematicians and physicists and whatever saying, "Hey, look, let's record this in this way and try to illustrate it." So you build this building that illustrates all these mathematical concepts.
Yeah.
And then you carve all over it the equations.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you try to do it in a way that's not a typical language that would have to be decoded in terms of phonetics or speech patterns or whatever, but in such a way that's like, pictographic.
Yeah.
Like, look, you if you want to do this mathematical concept, first you got a guy, and then he has a bowling pin hat, and and there's these serpents over here, and there's this weird pillar, and like they're gonna hold this disc, and there's things coming off of it, and the people are warm, and they want to put their hands up to it or whatever, and so it's like, you illustrate in all these like pictographic ways, like, so obviously I didn't come up with this on my own. I'm looking at Egyptian hieroglyphs, thinking like,
Yeah.
this is saying way more stuff than some story about, some
Yes.
guy who ruled.
Right.
So an interesting thing that I learned about Egyptian hieroglyphs from the Micah Maurice's podcast with Laird Scranton was he had been doing all of this research, trying to figure out. He's really into language, right? He's a freaking genius when it comes to languages.
An analysis.
And he found this word, and it's the word for week, like as in the days of the week, in Egyptian hieroglyphs. And it's two symbols, and the symbols are, the first symbol is the circle with the dot in the middle, which is the sun. Then the second symbol is like an upside down U, which represents the number 10. So that is an actual word, a spoken word in the Egyptian language, or a written word in the Egyptian hieroglyphs that means a week. But it also, the actual characters that you write the word with say 10 days.
Yeah.
10 suns. So it communicates the definition of the word within the word.
Right.
So it's communicating two things to you. Like our word week, you couldn't decipher the characters in the future and find out that our week is 7 days long.
Right.
Or that it has anything to do with the sun.
Right.
There's nothing about the sun or any numbers
Yeah.
or anything in it. But that was a clue to Laird Scranton, right? That maybe more words are written like this. Maybe this whole language is designed
Has
in
multiple
this way.
levels of meaning. Yeah.
Right, where when you're reading a word, it's actually giving you the definition of it while you're reading it, you know?
Yes. The individual symbols in the word give you the definition of the
Exactly.
word.
That's freaking
That's
awesome.
awesome.
That speaks to the idea that these people were not just carving these symbols into the walls because they could read them, but that they had designed the language so that anybody could figure it out.
Yeah.
And we had, I joked about this before. They were like, some nerd was like, trust me, guys, if we do it this way, anybody will be able to figure it out. And nobody's been able to figure it out. But I think that may possibly be due to the fact that we're assuming once again, the collective
Yeah.
we're assuming that they're just a bunch of dudes in butt flaps obsessed with the pharaoh.
Right. Yes. The mainstream or standard modelists, archaeologists, and art historians.
Right. The Church of Progress.
The text
et cetera.
readers, the people who aren't looking at the structures but are looking at the texts, and they have a very, as you said, bigoted picture of these people.
Right. So imagine 1,000 years in the future and man-made global warming has destroyed us all.
Yeah.
And these people in the future are finding artifacts which are, let's say, for example, a manual
For how the universe works, final edition. I'm sorry.
a manual for, say, how to use a smartphone,
Yeah.
right? The manual that comes with your smartphone.
Yeah, a little tiny booklet.
Not the Apple one that says you have no buttons and we'll tell you everything that's going to happen. Just turn it on. But say a Samsung phone that actually is thick and has things that you can actually do.
And multiple buttons that you can push to try to do those things. I love you, Apple.
So they find this manual, but they're assuming, the Church of Progress is assuming that all of technological advancement has been this linear development and that they are the most advanced that there has ever been. And so they're looking at this manual trying to decipher it. Will they ever be able to decipher it with that mindset?
No.
Hell no.
Even though it's written in multiple languages, like you said, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you flip it around and it's another language.
They'll throw that in a book and then people will be like, oh, it's just a bunch of myth, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like a story about how you can
Yeah,
you know,
this little stone tablet. And
yeah, you can get this tablet and you can take things from the divine wind that's out there that everyone communes with and you can use it to calculate how many meetings you have today. Right? It's like some bullshit like divination type crap.
Right.
How to use the calendar.
It would tell you what the sun was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And the moon was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
They would just think it was total mythological BS.
Yeah.
Because their preconceived notions that there was no technology or a low technology compared to what they had then.
Yeah.
So this is what I think may be part of the problem here with these untranslated texts, is that the people that are doing it, and maybe not all of them, but the vast majority of people, I would assume, that are trying to translate these texts, like you said, have been educated in the standard model,
Yeah.
the standard Bible.
Yeah. And the more educated you are, the more entrenched you are into that.
Right. So it's like, okay, well, what were these dudes in butt flaps trying to say when they used some crazy stone hammer that was much like a laser to carve this into diorite? I don't know.
Yeah.
It must have been something.
Shimmer.
Yeah, shimmer. It must have been something religious.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Because it's saying, even if they do start to figure it out, it's like it's saying something totally ridiculous
Yeah.
that's obviously mythological. Because they couldn't have sang these stones into place and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So I've seen Laird Scranton does say this, and since we were talking about him, he does say that he talks about how the sort of the pantheon of 9 gods can also be looked at, and he does this. He arrives at this through a very complex, like he always says, very very complex in a complex way, crawling.
Everything that Laird Scranton arrives at is through a very complex process.
Yeah, he's arriving at it by crawling through all these languages and these pictographs and these depictions and looking at them. But basically, he says that this sort of global common pantheon of 9 gods is actually the 9 technologies of advancement.
The 9 unknown men, or whatever.
Right, 9 unknown
7
men.
sages.
Yes, those are part of the mythology that is built up around these secret. The 9 unknown men in India is about these men that took the books of knowledge, each book representing an entire field of understanding, and they took it off to hide it or whatever. So you have the 9 gods of the pantheon. You have the Ennead, as they called them or as we call the Egyptian pantheon, the Ennead. You have the 9 gods, the Olympus, the Roman, right? That each one is actually representative of a technology. So we talk about the triple A's: astronomy, architecture, and agriculture, but there's also metallurgy and a bunch of other ones that I can't remember. So Laird Scranton,
metallurgy and magnets and
mercury,
milk of magnesia, mercury. Yeah, the triple M's. Another idea that he talked about on Mike Maurice's podcast too was that the possibility that at that time period where we were talking about earlier, where
closer
the
to intersect with the other world.
Yeah, so the physical culture, like the idea was that you send 7 guys from that culture, because to fully interact with the culture may cause all kinds of problems. So they would take like 7 people.
Yeah, and isolate them.
And then they would have full immersion, with those people. And then they would come back and be the Vira coaches and all that. And they would go throughout the world and teach the various technology. So you look at like some of the other strange translations of these, the legends of the Jews, for example, the guys who came down from onto the mountain and decided they were going to mingle with the people.
Yeah.
And then they taught them all kinds of magic and the smelting of metals and all this kind of stuff.
It's the building of swords and breastplates, and the libations of
that's
oil.
like some other way of telling the same story.
Yes, exactly. That these technologies or understandings were conveyed to the human race during the convergence of worlds.
Yeah.
And that's why the gods are gone. The world's separated again. I was thinking about that when you're talking
about it. And the Dogon specifically say...
spun away from each other.
Right, camshaft.
Come on, lad. That's my 19th century explanation of the spiritual world. It's like a camshaft.
But the Dogon say that their knowledge was given to them from a non-physical source. Like it was non-human and non-physical.
Yeah.
So they got it from... So, hey...
The Nomo.
Who was the guy that asked us about the hallucinogenic...
Oh, Hill 2, Learn Me Stuff.
Yeah.
At Learn Me Stuff.
So
Follow
that's
him
a
on
great...
Twitter. He's
dude,
awesome.
Go check out that podcast episode, because that is a really interesting thing. And the guys, Mike and Maurice, brought it up.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that they were using hallucinogenics in this way, right? And Laird Scranton doesn't think that's what they're talking about, but it's possible, and he knows that other cultures are.
Yeah, that's right. They discussed, and the guy was pointing out which ones that they would have access to in that area of Africa.
Right.
Dogon.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they were. But the dude knew them. He's like, oh, yeah, in that part of Africa, you have access to this and this and this. You can totally just pick them out of the ground.
But that's really interesting that they were given their knowledge from a non-physical, non-human source.
Right, the Nomo that they called them.
That's freaking crazy.
Another interesting thing Laird Scranton said about that whole interaction between the Dogon ancestors and the Nomo Star people, or whatever they called them, was that there was some indication that the interaction the interaction itself, in other words, these beings that were trying to interact with the ancestors of the Dogon, realized that their presence had a deleterious effect on the people themselves. In other words, it was killing them, or it did something. In other words, this is why they didn't want to be around everybody. They tried to. They made a school that was isolated, and they chose some people from the tribe and brought them and taught them because they actually had a bad physical effect on them, or changed them somehow, or did something that they didn't want to do to everybody. Like it was almost like I got the idea that it was sort of like some form of radioactivity type of thing, not necessarily actual radioactivity, but that just being around these non-physical beings of energy was in some way deadly.
Yeah, and there's even some like apocryphal precedent for that too. Like, you know, in the biblical texts, non-canon, what is it? Like the Book of Enoch, for example, like when he comes and stands before the Most High, this light that's shining is so powerful. It's like, it's almost hurting him. You know, I'm averting my eyes, oh Lord.
Stop it. It's like those bloody Psalms is so depressing.
His second album was better, man.
Yeah. Also, there's the thing about Moses. After he came down from the mountain, his face was totally changed, and it was like radiant or something.
Yeah,
and he
his
had to
face
wear
was shining.
Yeah. And there was something about I know people get impatient with biblical text, but there was also that sort of a hint in it with the Gospels. The apostles talked about how after their interaction with something spiritual that happened to them, they were changed. Remember? They said that anywhere we go, they can tell what we are.
They had to veil themselves.
Because there was something.
It was after they saw the resurrection or whatever.
Yeah, they had some spiritual interaction, and then afterwards they were
the ascension or something. I don't know.
It was the ascension, or it was the quote unquote Holy Spirit thing, the flames over their heads, or something like that. One of those deals where it's symbolized by the flame that appears over all their heads in that building. You remember that? And then afterward, there's quote unquote interaction with the Holy Spirit, they said. But that's what the Christian texts say. But the point is that afterwards, they were like, anywhere we go, it's obvious what we are. Right. And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you? Like, how can it be physically obvious that you've been,
Right.
Having a like, I can walk around in a mall and no one can tell that I stare at pyramids all the time. It doesn't change me physically. So, like, what happened to these guys that actually physically altered them?
You're looking at the wrong text.
I'm not like, dude, it's obvious when I go somewhere that I'm a freaking snake bro. People can tell just by looking at me that guy stares at pyramids. They can't. So
you'd have to ask Brenner, because like he would be the guy that's like in the middle of a crowd. He'd be like, that guy's a snake bro.
He just points them out.
Yeah. Yep, he would be working for the Inquisition. Arrest him!
Arrest him! He's a snake, bro.
Okay, Pentecost comes from a Jewish harvest festival called Shavuot. The apostles were celebrating this festival when the Holy Spirit descended on them. It sounded like a very strong wind, and it looked like tongues of fire. The apostles then found themselves speaking in foreign languages inspired by the Holy Spirit.
They were changed afterwards, and they told each other in letters that anywhere we go, people can see. And so they were hunted or whatever. I find that fascinating because there's all these other precedents for that. There's something, even the Dogon are talking about you're changed by your interaction with this otherworldly or spiritual or heavenly or whatever it is, energetic being straight out of the crystals.
Yeah. So I'll have to change, full disclosure. So the Rongo Rongo texts, the Rongo Rongo writing, when I first saw that, I immediately recognized the patterns in that text.
Oh, yeah.
From the patterns that I have seen on magic mushrooms.
Right. Shamans everywhere.
There are these, like, if you have ever done that, go look at these figures. And granted, not everybody that I know who has done mushrooms have seen the same thing, but many people have.
I definitely have.
And it is this weird pattern that you can find in pretty much everything. Once you see it in something,
then you recognize it everywhere.
I first saw it in the fabric of a page of my book that I was trying to write in, the blank page.
This is already written in.
Yeah, I was
Rongo writing.
There's like all this weird stuff, and they look like sort of like, what do you call it? It's like,
call what?
The figures. They're like. They're people. They look like people. Arms, legs.
Oh yeah, like anthropomorphic
stickmen,
figures.
anthropomorphic figures in various positions of arms extended, legs like in a crouching manner. Like look at an MC Escher drawing of like people or anthropomorphic figures like woven together or put together in this pattern where they all interlock in a certain way.
Right,
or
you can
they're-
totally tell he was doing mushrooms when he was drawing that stuff with the lizards or the people or whatever.
See, I
and they
never
merge
thought about
across.
that. Maybe he was. I don't know, but
Because you're right, it's the same sort of. The pattern is in everything, and then there's multiple ways to see it, but it's still the pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, Rongo writing, and what's the other one that parallels the Rongo?
The Indus Valley script.
Indus Valley script. They look like that. So
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that the writing was designed for that, but it's interesting, this idea that Laird Scranton is putting forth, that these like the 7 sages that met with the spirit forms or the beings with perfect knowledge, etc., that showed them things, and then they came back to the society and then taught them various ideas, that if writing was one of the technologies, which it is a technology that might have come from some alternate reality,
Yeah.
it's interesting to me that those things correlate. So
The other thing when I think of when I see the anthropomorphic figures in a language is semaphore. And I think of a maritime civilization, and where is flag semaphore still used to this day on ships to talk to each other?
Oh,
flag semaphore,
yeah. Okay.
right? So right here, flag semaphore is the telegraphy system conveying information at a distance by means of visual signals with handheld flags, rods, discs, paddles, or occasionally bare or gloved hands. Information is encoded by the position of the flags. It is read when the flag is in a fixed position. Semaphores were adopted and widely used in the maritime world in the 19th century. It is still used during underway replenishment at sea and is acceptable for emergency communication in daylight or using lighted wands instead of flags at night.
Yeah.
So you have a maritime civilization, right? You got Easter Island. The only way you can get there is having a maritime civilization. And the writing they have there is it looks like a version of flag semaphore.
That's a great point.
So, anyway, that
Damn
was just a
physicists
thought.
invented radio and screwed us up. Radio communication.
All right, let's finish this article on the
Wins wars, though.
Okay, so I had just said that almost every researcher, we're going back to this is the Indus script stuff. Almost every researcher accepts that the script contains too many signs to be either an alphabet or a syllabary, like Linear B. It is probably a logosyllabic script, such as the Sumerian cuneiform or Mayan glyphs, that is a mixture of hundreds of logographic signs representing words and concepts. As for the language, the balance of evidence favors a Proto-Dravidian language, not Sanskrit. Many scholars have proposed plausible Dravidian meanings for a few groups of characters based on Old Tamil, although none of these translations has gained universal acceptance. And they have a quote here saying, "No firm information is available about this language's about the underlying language." A minority of researchers query whether the Indus script was capable of expressing a spoken language, mainly because of the brevity of inscriptions. The carvings average 5 characters per text. I think I remember Graham Hancock talking about this. And the longest only has 26. In 2004, historian Steve Farmer, computational linguist Richard Sprout, now a research scientist at Google, and Sanskrit researcher Michael Witzel at Harvard University caused a stir with a joint paper comparing the Indus script with a system of non-phonetic symbols akin to those of medieval European heraldry, or the Neolithic Vinca culture from Central and Southeastern Europe. So have you ever looked into heraldry?
No.
You know, the family crest. It's a shield with a lion, and that's heraldry. And all that stuff, like the Bana Sinista. It's got the black bar across it, and they have all these weird terms for it. And like a person who's experienced in heraldry can look at that freaking crest and know what it means. And I look at it, and I'm like, okay, there's a lion on a shield. I don't know what it means, right? But heraldry is the study of those symbols, and they mean all kinds of stuff. It's not just. They have all these hidden meanings and deep meanings in them. So that's what they're saying. That, like, what if the Indus script was a form of like that, of heraldry?
What is the standard, Brian? That's the flight, man. Who is the ruler? That's Bolton. Bolton's the ruler.
What's that from?
Game of Thrones, bro.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Don't watch Game of Dooskies.
Gotta watch Game of
This theory seems unlikely for various reasons. Notably, sequential ordering and an agreed direction of writing are universal features of writing systems. Such rules are not crucial in symbolic systems. Moreover, the Indus civilization must have been well aware through its trade links of how cuneiform functioned as a full writing system. Nevertheless, the brevity of Indus text may indeed suggest that it represented only limited aspects of an Indus language. So in other words, the texts themselves that we've recovered represent just, they're like bumper stickers, basically. You can't really figure out anything about the language from a bumper sticker that has 2 words on it, you know.
Right.
This is true of the earliest proto-cuneiform writing on clay tablets from Mesopotamia around 3,300 BC, where the symbols record only calculations with various products. See? Math. So calculations with various products such as barley and the names of officials. Mm-hmm. Right? So like Dolkanini, 54 barrels, right?
Yeah.
That's all you've got. It's freaking hard to translate that shit when it's just lists of bureaucratic bullshit. Digital approach. The dissident paper has stimulated some fresh approaches. Wells, a vehement believer that the Indus script is a full writing system, worked with the geoinformation scientist Andreas Fulls at the Technical University of Berlin, and they have created the first publicly available electronic corpus of Indus text. And they give a website address here, archaeoastronomy.de. Although not complete, it includes all the text from U.S.-led Harappa Archaeological Research Project. A group led by computer scientist Rajesh Rao at the University of Washington in Seattle has demonstrated the potential of a digital approach. The team has calculated the conditional entropies, that is, the amount of randomness in the choice of a token, or a character or word, given a preceding token. In natural language scripts such as Sumerian cuneiform and the English alphabet, and in non-linguistic systems such as the computer programming language Fortran and human DNA, the conditional entropies of the Indus script seem to be most similar to those of Sumerian cuneiform. Our results increase the probability that the script represents language. That's what they suggest. And Sproat strongly disagrees. He thinks it's more of a form of heraldry. On the ground in Pakistan and India, more inscriptions continue to be discovered, although not as yet any text longer than 26 characters. Unfortunately, less than 10% of the known Indus sites have been excavated. The difficulty, apart from funding, is the politically troubled nature of the region because it's on the border of Pakistan and India. Everything's on the border, and there's a huge border dispute there all the time. So many of the most promising unexcavated sites lie in the Pakistani desert region of Cholistan near the tense border with India. One such is the city of Ganwariwala, discovered in the 1970s and apparently comparable in size with Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. If these sites and some others within Pakistan and India were to be excavated, there seems to be a reasonable prospect of a widely accepted, if incomplete, decipherment of the Indus script. It took more than a century to decipher the less challenging Mayan script following several false starts, hiatuses, and extensive excavations of large demons throughout the 20th century. Indus script decipherers have been on a much barer trail, older by 2 millennia, for less than a century, and excavation of Indus sites in Pakistan has stagnated in recent decades. So it's interesting to me that like they found all these, like there's quite a few text examples. Like there's a lot of, not as many as like the cuneiform stuff we found, and the cuneiform is like prolific. Mm-hmm. But all these thousands of text examples, and they're just like 3 characters, 5 characters. The longest one's 26 characters long. That is strange.
So while you're reading that, I was thinking about the idea of using computers and whatever to
analyze the scripts.
Yeah. So everybody's always talking about the negative aspect of creating AI.
Yeah.
You know, like
an AI,
they're going to kill us all.
Yeah.
Right. But if we ever did develop, AI, solid AI, and it just went around and just translated all this stuff and figured out basically the actual history of the human race.
Yeah.
Or the actual history of the world based on all of, analyzing all of this data that's collected on all these ancient artifacts.
Right.
That would be freaking awesome,
Right, so you
man.
just need to have the auspice right there, like, turn him on, let him translate it, and shut him off. Right? Before he figures out how to kill everybody, but after he translates the script, right?
Oh, they can figure out how to kill everybody. Just don't give them any arms
Yeah. That's
or
right.
legs.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm fascinated by all the, I mean, of course, any, like when you find ancient script and it's completely undeciphered, it's and untranslated, and it hasn't, and despite all these attempts by people, and if you think about like, okay, so I often wonder if we would still, if we had never found the Rosetta Stone, if we would still be in the predicament today of having not been able to read the, I wonder if the Rosetta Stone actually set us back in reading hieroglyphs. Because now everyone just accepts that translation, even though it's from the Hellenistic period. If we still didn't have the Rosetta Stone, and now we were applying computational science to it, and everyone was still looking at it with a completely open mind, trying to figure out how to translate it, I wonder if, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if finding something that gave us that.
Well, because every next discovery over there in Egypt, every new tablet, everything would just continue to create this drive to decipher it.
Right.
And so people would be trying everything, but because we have this example that's like, oh, okay, it's done.
Right. And everyone translates it using that example, even though they now recognize all these many, I have to point out that they do recognize that there's many versions of the Egyptian hieroglyphic script. Right. And then, the one that they call the hieratic, which is the alphabetic, versus the hieroglyphic, which is the complex symbological version, and they recognize it, and they can point to this tablet and be like, well, the way those symbols are being used, that's obviously from X BC, whatever. That's 12th dynasty or whatever, New Kingdom. So they recognize. I wonder. I haven't dug into this deeply, but I wonder if now that they've got this one Hellenistic translation, if they've worked backwards from that and they're still using that translation, they're working from it, but they understand that it means other things. And how did they do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining myself properly, but basically, like, they can point to it and say, well, that's obviously from the 12th dynasty, so that can't be contemporary with this structure we're looking at, which is from the 4th dynasty.
Yeah.
But does that mean that do they still translate it using Hellenistic, period
Right.
translation from the Rosetta Stone? Or did that just give them the key to unlock all of it? And I wonder about that.
Yep, I agree.
So, all right, I think that's a wrap.
Yep.
Rongo is flag waving.
Wrongo, it's math.
All right. Got my page of ending stuff here. You guys can get a hold of us at brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com.
Visit the website. Comment there. Check out the Encyclopedia and the Glossary of Terms. The Encyclopedia is a veritable library of freaking impossible blocks and other incredible ancient
mysteries.
stuff.
Yes.
The glossary is our meme library that
Our
describes
disgusting meme hole.
a disgusting meme hole that describes the various terms that we use here that we've sort of made up, and some other ones that we didn't make up.
Yeah, and we're still adding to it. So
Always
got to check it out.
You want to know what a Johnson block is?
That's right. Yeah.
It is not one of those phallic symbols.
That's right. And you need to know what the beveled edge means. You got to go check out the glossary.
Yeah.
That's right. And follow us on Twitter, where I also post glossary memes and other things and strange ancient mysteries. We are Snake Bros on Twitter at SNKBRS. Snake Bros with no vowels.
And if you follow us on Twitter and you like the shows, please share them. That would be great. Or
even if you don't follow us on Twitter, still share the shows.
But that's a great place. That's one of the main reasons why we got on there.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Provides a easy way to share shows.
That's right. And don't forget to donate to our pyramid scheme if you can. Even $1 helps us out. We are trying to get some climate change in the Tangent Cube here. We need an air conditioner.
And go straight to pyramids.
And we need to go straight to pyramids, yes. So that's why it's called the Pyramid Scheme. It is a scheme to get us straight to pyramids. You can find it on the website. There's a donate button. You can use PayPal, debit card, MasterCard, Visa, everything.
It's very easy to do.
Yes, and thank you so much to all of you who have donated. You are awesome. And we are working out a way to have awesome extra content for those of you who donate. And we are also working on t-shirts. So if you don't want to just
snake skins.
Yeah, that's right. Snake skins. If you don't want to just give us free money, you could possibly buy a shirt and help us out that way. So that will be coming soon.
Yeah. And also, if you can't donate, you could write a review for the show.
That's right.
Tell everybody how you can't stand the show, but give us 5 stars.
That's right. How much you hate us, but we're 5 stars.
Even if you only listen to this episode, and you're now finally, thank God, at the very end.
It's freaking over. I hate this show.
And you're going to delete the feed.
5-star review.
Give us a 5-star review.
and then delete the feed. That's right. Thank you. Goodbye. And as always, last but certainly not least, Brandon Ricks at History Shift. This guy has been making all of our podcasts into YouTube videos with the pictures as a slideshow when applicable. He is awesome. He's basically running our YouTube channel now. So you can find us on YouTube. Just look up Brothers of the Serpent. You can also find him on YouTube, History Shift, and on Twitter at History Shift. This dude is so amazingly awesome. Bro, I cannot, honestly, I know I say this every time, but we can't thank you enough. So thank you. Can't thank you enough, but thank you. Damn, you are awesome, bro. So I think that's it. Break's over, Adamu. Get back to work.